Welcome back, Breakaway Wealth. I'm your host, Jim Oliver, and with me today is Mark Podolsky, aka the Land Geek. Welcome, Mark.
Jim Oliver, so good to see you again, brother. Thanks.
It's good to see you. It's been a while, and we wanted to have you back on and update the audience on what you've been up to and how your company has grown and that market has grown. And before we get into that, tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of refresh the audience on who you are and how you became the Land Geek.
So I'm a professional land investor. I've been investing in raw, undeveloped land since 2000. I've been doing it full time since 2001. I've done over 6,000 transactions, and I absolutely love it. The way I started was just trying to get out of a terrible job. I had a 45-minute commute to work and back, and micromanaged, and I had a bunch of Dwight Schrutes in the office, and it got so bad for me, I wouldn't get the Sunday blues, anticipating Monday coming around. I get the Friday blues, anticipating the weekend going by really fast and having to be back at work on Monday. And I was working, as an investment banker with private equity groups. So my firm hires this guy. He's telling me there's a side hustle. He's buying raw land, pennies on the dollar at tax deed auctions. He's flipping them online, and he's making a 300% return on his money. Well, Jim, I'm looking at companies all day long. A great company has 15% EBITDA margins or free cash flow. Average company is 10%. And I'm looking at companies all day long, less than 10%. So I don't believe him. I've got $3,000 saved up for car repairs. I go with him to New Mexico. I buy 10 half-acre parcels at an average price of $300 each. They all sell for an average price of $1,200 each, 300% it worked. So then I did it again. And I made over $90,000 on that auction. And so I go to my wife. She's pregnant. I said, honey, I'll quit my job, become a full-time land investor. She's like, absolutely not. So it took me about 18 months for the land investing income to exceed the investment banking income, and then I quit. And I've been doing it full-time ever since.
That's awesome. It's funny how things motivate you. And, Tony Robbins always says pain or pleasure motivates you, and pain is the stronger motivator. And for any of us that have been in a situation that we didn't want to stay in, we can vouch for that. That pain is a big motivator. How, when somebody says, okay, well, that was 2000. Are there still opportunities in 2022? And how long does it take? You've been doing it 22 years. I get some questions like that about infinite banking. And hey, Jim, you've been doing this so long. Of course, there's a lot of money flowing, but I tell people you can get started relatively quickly in infinite banking, and I believe you can do the same thing in raw land investing. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. What's interesting about raw land is that it's the most boring niche in real estate. So you're not going to go on HGTV or the DIY network and say, flip this land. The before picture's raw land.
Yeah.
The after picture's raw land. The other part about raw land that's interesting is that there's billions of acres available for sale in this country. So, and there's no money, really, big money in this niche. There's no private equity groups, there's no hedge funds. And so you, me, a million people could be in this niche. We'll all run out of money before we run out of deal flow. So for me personally, my company's only grown every single year. Now, we had one hiccup, and that was in 2010 after the Great Recession. But after that, it's grown. But even during the Great Recession, I was still profitable because our margins are so big. I mean, this is an inefficient market. Nobody really knows the value of their land. It's kind of what a buyer and seller agree to. So, our average margin is 300 to 1,000%.
I do an example where I show somebody taking $100,000, putting it into an infinite banking policy, and then taking that money and putting it in motion in a cash flowing asset, right? And I show 25% cash on cash. And I get pushback every once in a while, and somebody will say, 25% cash on cash, that's a lot. And I think, okay, I need to educate you in a different way. When you when you say that, or you think that, because you're thinking in a purely traditional, not leveraging, not doing anything creative, and you're thinking 25% sounds a little bit high. But I get people, and I talk to people like you, Mark, and if I said 25%, you'd say, hey, could you use something higher? I'm not going to do anything for 25% cash on cash, right? And
if I don't make a 72% annual yield on my money, it's something like really wrong.
Yeah. So when you, and I know you're familiar with infinite banking, when you do infinite banking and your cash flowing asset gets 72% or better, trust me, the money flows back in faster than you can buy policies. And that's what's really cool. But, people sitting in the audience, so many people just don't know what to do. What's the first step? And I always say knowledge is power. And I know that, and we've signed up, Nick Costco and I have both signed up for your program, and we've hired people, and we just honestly haven't found the right person to run this for us yet, but we will. And your talk about your system of teaching somebody how to do this, but then I guess go there first, and then we're going to talk about like people that take action and have success, and people that haven't taken action and why they don't have success.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting psychologically to see, okay, why does one person go into this niche, just kill it and do really, really well and start making, $10, $20, $30,000 a month in passive income. And another person just can't get out of the gate. Like they just don't like it, or they don't get it, or they don't do it. And I think it all comes down to pain. So when you're in real pain, you're motivated. You have a burning desire to get out of it. If you're pretty comfortable and things are going pretty well, and I tell you, okay, well, you're going to have to pay a price and be uncomfortable for a little bit as you learn this niche, really, really hard. So I think that's sort of like the core aspect is how motivated are you? What's your burning desire to do? What's your why? What's your purpose? Because it has to be something bigger than you. If it's not bigger than you, you're pretty comfortable, well, you're not going to do it.
No, you're exactly right.
So I think that's what it is.
So I always say that you can't motivate anybody. All you can do is create an atmosphere to where they want to motivate themselves. And so that's exactly what you're saying. And opportunities, you have to be able to visualize what is your life going to look like 5 years from now. And Dan Sullivan always talks about 10Xing is easier than 2Xing, right? And that you can 10X in 3 to 5 years. And I've found that to be true 100% of the time. But you have to get that vision of what you want and what you're going to do. And, we had a client that last time you were on signed up for your program. He's a pilot. His wife is a doctor. And so you would think, well, what pain do they have? Right. But he created in his mind the pain and actually delegated a lot of his activities in raw land investing. And he loves it. And I know he's been at your workshops and everything else. And if I had his permission, I would mention his name, but I don't, so I won't. But I'm sure he wouldn't care, because he really is a big believer in your program. And talk about how, what's the top person? I always want to know, what's the top person that's doing your system? What kind of income are they producing in a year?
So, about, I'd say, I don't, because it fluctuates with notes, but I can tell you with, 100% confidence, they're over 100,000 a month in passive income. So
passive income,
right. So not active, like that's just coming in on their note portfolio.
Yeah. Now, if you think about it, there's a lot of people in the audience. What would you do to have $100,000 a month coming in passively? What would your life look like? What would your relationships look like? What would your contributions to the things that are important to you in this world look like? What would your impact on other people look like? And that's what you got to get down. And so, you got to start somewhere, but to get motivated to start, you got to know what's it's the carrot and the stick, right? You got to know, hey, I don't want to do all of this and then only make 100 grand a year doing it, but how about 100 grand a month passively? And that's passive revenue, not passive income, because revenue is not 100% taxed. Passive income is taxed, but revenue, you have deductions and you have all kinds of stuff to take off of your taxes. So I always like to say passive revenue, not passive income.
Right.
So how would somebody get started, Mark? Tell me like the process, because if somebody in the audience wants to be the hero of the story and they need a guide, and you're that guide because you've done it over and over and over again, you have proof of concept, you have proof of success from other people have taken your system and have produced $100,000 or more per month of passive revenue, then I would want to know how would I start?
Yeah, I mean, I think the best place to start is just thelandgeek.com, and then you can see what your path would look like. So you could schedule a call with our team. They can kind of walk you through it. Some people are really self-motivated. They're the kind of people that, wake up at 4:30 in the morning, they get to the gym by 5, and, they can just read a book or watch a video and have perfect form and, work out really hard at the gym and get results. I'm not like that, right? I want to go to a personal trainer. I don't want to think about what I have to do. And we have that option as well. And then there's other people that would just rather be in a big group and have a trainer and then take a class. So we have each sort of path for somebody, and they're the best way for the learning style, and kind of, start there. But really, I think the best way to learn anything is by doing it. So you can even start free. We have a free course, just landgeek.com/quick deals, how to double your money in 30 days or less.
Wow. So again, I love that because you have different avenues. It's not like you have to make a huge commitment or really any commitment to get started, but you got to take action. And right. Normally the reason people don't take action is because they're afraid of something, but what do you have to lose? What's there to be afraid of? And the only thing that cures fear is action. So, in our community, the first question that we asked last week, and we just launched our community, Create Tailwind, community.createtailwind.com, is what's one thing you can do today to, help your family have a bigger future and build your generational wealth. And, we had a lot of different answers. And you know what the bottom line is? You got to do something. Do something.
We got to do something.
If you go to landgeek.com or the link landgeek.com, right? Sorry.
Right.
And you check out the information, you start to educate yourself, and you'll know pretty quickly, okay, I want to learn more. And the one thing that I know about Mark's organization is they're just going to, there's not a big close at the end. They're going to educate you about what they do. It's either for you or it's not for you. It's not for, I always say infinite banking, which I think is amazing, isn't for everybody, but how are you going to know unless you check it out? So now, Mark, don't you have a book too?
Yeah, I've got a book called Dirt Rich. I'm working on a second book right now, nice. How to scale your land business, Dirt Rich 2, the next nice. Plot. So hopefully that's going to come out this year. But, but as you're talking, like, to your point, it made me realize, like, a lot of these, all these courses and all this information online, and you can invest all this money. I always think about pilots, right? Like, when you go on an airplane, that pilot, they got skin in the game to get you to the next destination. Right? So I love that idea. Like, I want to be the pilot. I want to have skin in the game. So all our training programs are guaranteed. So we have skin in the game too. Like, if you just take action and you show us your work, we guarantee that any investment you make with us, you're going to make back 180 days or less. So there literally is no risk. So now I have skin in the game too, which means that we keep up to date on what's working in today's market. Is because we got a fluid market, things are constantly changing. So we sort of structure it that way. But I digress. Yes, I have a
Oh no, but that's great.
yeah.
Again, if somebody says, well, if I, I buy a program and then that doesn't work, and I've done that before, you got lots of people that have lots of excuses, but there's, like you said, there's nothing at risk. And you're in the same as Coach Fleck up in Minnesota for his football team. He'd say, we're all rowing in the same direction in the same canoe, right? Is
right.
If we're in the same canoe, then we have something, we have a common goal, and that's to stay afloat, right? But it's funny that you mentioned that about pilots, because Nick Costco said when he was flying 747s, that somebody said something about, do you worry about all the people in the back of the plane? And he said, no, I'm butchering this, but he said, I worry about getting home to my family. I'm worried about the guy in the cockpit, right? And so, he's committed, not interested, right? And I think that if you're going to do this program, you need to be committed, not just interested in any program, because nothing's going to work if you just you dip your toe in the water. You can't swim that way. You got to jump in.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's like, you're building a bridge, right? Brick by brick by brick. And all of a sudden, you get halfway to, if you're building your bridge, you're like, oh, wait, ATM investing. And then you start building another bridge. Like you never get to the other side of where you want to be, because you keep switching. So when you fully commit, you're going to build this bridge for this purpose that I want to achieve. Whether it's, getting out of what I call sole economic dependency, which means that you're personally not working, you're not making any money, financial freedom, improving your relationships, whatever it is, you have to commit to that one thing and focus on it. I totally agree with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So Mark, okay, everybody can go to thelandgeek.com, and really appreciate you just reminding the audience, and maybe there was somebody that heard you before and now they're ready to take action, or somebody that hasn't heard you before and they're ready to go on your website, get some information, and kind of start that journey to see if it's right for them. I like to ask everybody, Mark, that comes on the show, if God came down from heaven and told you that you could only retain the knowledge that you've obtained from one book. That was not said very well, but if you could only retain the knowledge from one book, Mark, what would it be?
It's such a good question. I love this question. So I've got a bunch of books I love, but if I only had to pick one, and I think had like the most wisdom in it per page. So, I'm going to throw the Bible out. It's easy.
Yeah.
I am going to recommend, I don't want to mess this up. Here it is. The Almanac of Naval Ravikant. So this.
Hey, you stumped me. I have not read that one.
Okay, I'll just go to any page. Any page.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll just read it. There are no external forces affecting your emotions, as much as it may feel that way. Happiness is what's there when you remove the sense that something is missing in your life. This is like every page is like really good.
Yeah.
So he talks about, happiness. He talks about wealth. Here, like, if they can train you to do it, then eventually they will train a computer to do it. Embrace accountability and take business risks under your own name. Society will reward you with responsibility, equity, and leverage. I mean, it's just every page is chock full of like business wisdom. So
you're the first person to mention that book on this show, and I appreciate that, because when I'm listening to the show and doing these interviews, and somebody says, this is, if I could only have the knowledge from one book, this is it. If I haven't read it, I'm reading it, because I mean, that's a powerful statement, right?
Yeah, no, Jim, please, after you read it, let me know what you think. Every time I've gifted this book, every person has told me this is their favorite book.
Really? Wow, I love that.
Every
Then
person.
I'm gonna have to get a case of them so I can hand them out. All right, Mark, any famous last words? Did we miss anything that we want to talk about?
Famous last words. Okay, let's do a Zig Ziglar quote. If you'll do for the next 3 to 5 years what other people won't do, you'll be able to do for the rest of your life what other people can't do. 3 to 5 years.
You know, I heard that when I was 22 years old, grew up very poor, had a, I'm going to say, okay education, not in the public schools in LA, but after LA. And that one thing, I worked really hard for 3 to 5 years, and it was like magic. Is like all of a sudden, I was doing things that my peers that didn't work very hard, that were, you know, going to happy hour at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, etc. I was doing things they couldn't do. I was buying things they couldn't buy. And that is 100% truth. And Mark, so thank you for your time. Thank you for the book recommendation. Thank you for that quote.